Let's dive a little bit deeper into arrays. We saw a little bit in the previous lesson, and I want to go deeper now. So I'm going to create a new file here, as usual. And I'm going to save that in code, and I'm going to call it array.rb. Then I'm going to navigate to the folder. I'm going to see that the file is indeed there. So we saw the very basics of array. So we had a string, like we had something like key equals value, and then we use the split function or method, and we put that into a variable called key value. And we saw that if we print the key value dot length, we will have the it's going to print how many elements are there in the array. And we can also do something like this, and then also something like this, and it's going to print. So this is going to print the let me actually go ahead and run this. So it's going to print first here, the first line, which the value there is true, is 2. It's going to print how many elements are in this array, and the second line is going to print the first element, and here the last element of the array, or the second element. We only have 2 elements, so that's why it's the last one as well. And we can go ahead and print the third element of the array. However, we already know that this array does not have more than 2 elements. So what is being printed here is just nothing, just an empty line. Now, I'm going to go a little bit in that. So we have to learn another concept here in Ruby. And well, I already told you about the class thing. So let's append the dot class to every single one of these. So we can know, we know that without the dot class thing, it was printing the value here. So if we put this dot class, it's going to print now the type of this value. So this dot class here is going to print whatever is the type of the resulting value of length. And here is going to print the type of the first element, and so on. So if we run this now, we see that we have 3 different types here. So the first, naturally, is an integer, just because it's a integer number, because it's the length of how many values we have. Now the second type, which refers to this key, is a string. So that's fine, that's totally expected. Now the third element is then white space value, and it's also a string. And now for the third element, we have this new class. So new class, what is new class? And this is an important concept in Ruby as well. So this new class does not have anything to do with arrays, but it's just a feature of the Ruby language, and also of many other programming languages. So what is new class? So new class is the type of the value nil. So if you think about it, let's say we have some, I'm just going to start writing some things here. So let's say you have the number 1000 and you have the number 5000. So what is the type of this? What's the type name of this 1000? Well, it's integer. That's because this is an integer number. Also for 5000, same thing. So if you would have it like this, now the type of this, if we would do dot class here, we would see that this is a string. That's because it's between quotes. So this is a string. And if you do some operation like 1000 plus 5000, you know, you're gonna get 6000 here. However, if you do, so this would equal 6000, and if you would do something like this, you would not get 6000. So you should do that test, do it yourself. What you would get instead is it would concatenate these 2 strings, and you would get the final string, which is just these characters plus these characters. So Ruby doesn't know what is contained in the string. Ruby doesn't care if whatever is inside the string is a number or not. Ruby only knows that this is a string. So it doesn't matter if a number or whatever it is. It's just going to treat them as strings. That's why it's just putting these 2 strings together like this. And that's also the same thing for numbers. You're gonna sum numbers just like numbers are supposed to be summed up. Anyway, and then we have this nil type here. And well, what I really wanted to show is that you can have many different numbers. In fact, you can have 1, you can have 2 or 3, you can have this big number over here, you can have this other big number over here. So you can have many numbers. In fact, they're infinite, an infinite number of numbers, and they are all of the type of all these numbers are integer. So there's a special thing here in Ruby called nil, and you see it's already in bold and in blue. So it means it's a special thing. And this nil thing, the type of nil is nil class. So there's only one element of type nil class, and this element is nil. So there can be many strings, many different instances of string. Let's say you can have any kind of string really. You can have many different integers, like any valid number is going to be an integer, but you cannot have different instances for nil. The only value that is nil is that is of the nil class is nil, and the only value that has the type nil class is nil. So it's a kind of a one-to-one relationship there. And what this nil value actually means? It means something like nothing, null, or undefined. So this is the meaning of it. So you need some kind of thing to deal with unknown things or nothings, or well, it's just a concept of nothing really, if you stop to think about it. So what is the third element in an array that has only 3 elements? So there's no third element. So really you could think that the third element is actually nothing. It could have raised an error. So Ruby could have told it, well, that's actually an error to try to access the third element of an array that has only 2 elements. However, that's not the way Ruby was programmed. So it was programmed to say, like, if you're trying to access the third element and there's no such thing as a third element because there's only 2 elements, then I'm going to give you nothing. And nothing is represented then by nil. So this is going to be nil. And well, that's the basic concept of nil, and it's being used in quite a few different places in Ruby. And yeah, so that's it for nil in this array lesson. So let's move forward more with arrays themselves. So yeah, so we saw that we can create an array using this split thing. But how can we, for instance, create an array just like out of nowhere? And we can do it like, we can say numbers, or let's say a groceries. So groceries equals, and then we want to make a list of groceries. And then the way you do it is using these square brackets again. So the square brackets refer to array. They are things to deal with arrays. You can use square brackets to access elements in arrays. You can also use square brackets to declare or create new arrays. Declaring or creating arrays is the same thing, just different terms for the thing. So let's say we have here banana, and we have I don't know, tea, meat. Meat could be like, I don't know, beef meat. Could be cheese. Yeah, anything really. So here, what do we have here? If we use puts groceries, and we run this code, let me clear this and run Ruby array. So you're gonna have banana, tea, beef, and cheese. And we can go ahead and pick like the third element, which is gonna be beef, right? Because 0, so remember it starts from 0, 0, 1, and then 2. So 2 is gonna be beef. And if you run this, you're gonna see that it's gonna be beef. And if we take the class of this, naturally, it's going to be a string, because beef is here a string. So what if beef was a number? So we want to go to the grocery store and we want to buy 3,000. There's such a thing as 3,000. You can go to the cashier and say, give me 3,000. Well, this doesn't make sense in the supermarket, but this does make sense in Ruby. So an array, you can have anything really inside an array. So our grocery list, if we print the whole grocery list now, it's going to be banana, tea, 3,000, and cheese. So let's go with this weird grocery list. And also something we can do is we can say groceries class, and you're going to see that it's indeed an array. Now let's say that so we have this weird grocery list, and just for the sake of, let me clear this and run it again. and now let's go ahead and say, well, this 3,000 was actually a mistake, and we want to correct that. Now I want to change that element to something else. We can do it like groceries, and if we do so 0, 1, 2. If we want to access the third element, it's going to be 2 here, and this way we can get the value of this element. We get this value. However, if we do equals, we can change the value of it, and then we can go back and see and say that we want to buy a pear. So there you go. There we have now our list. So our list, the list itself has not changed, but what is changed is that this element of the list has changed. So yeah, there you go. This is how you can change elements of a list. You could also change the first element. There you go. Now we have, instead of banana, we were buying pear, and now we also have the 3,000 thing here. And so this is how you create an array. You create an array like this. You could also create an empty array. You would just do like this. So you can create an empty array like this. And then, well, you see, you can, it's a little bit odd, but you can create an empty array, and then you can edit the first element, which does not exist, but since you just created this new element here. So this is not common to do in Ruby. This is weird. Because you're saying, well, change the first element, but there's no actual first element. So what we can do also with arrays in Ruby, and let me go back to the grocery list. We can say, well, I want to buy bananas and tea and 3,000, and I want to buy also cheese, but I also want to buy a pear. So you can do this. So that's 2 lesser than symbols. And if we run this, we're going to see that now we have all the elements that we declared. They're on line 2 here, this line. And we also have pear down here. So this little notation here is really a symbol that represents, please add this element. So add this element to the end or to the right side of the list. So usually this is the beginning of the list here. This is the beginning. That's why you start with index 0. And then here are the last element. This is the end of the list, the right side. So this symbol is always going to add to the end of the list. So we say it's going to push an element inside to the list or to the array. I'm using the terms list and array. They're essentially saying the same thing. We could also achieve this same result as line 4. We could say groceries dot push, and then we could say I don't know, beef. Let's say we wanted that beef. And if we run this, you're gonna see we have bananas with tea, 3,000 cheese, pear, and beef. And naturally, if you calculate the length of this, we're gonna have 6 elements. These 4 here and these 2 that we added. Also, one different characteristic of lists is that you can have repeated elements. So we're gonna have 2 pears here, and the array is not gonna care about that. It's not even gonna know about that. If we do length, we are still going to have 6 elements. So the array doesn't care that these two elements are exactly the same. You can just do that and it's totally fine. And yeah, so that's how you insert elements into an array. There are different ways though to do that. So let's say we want to buy beef. So we want to also have beef. However, we want to put beef. Oh, sorry, I should remove this length from here. And let's say we want to buy beef, but we want to have beef in the beginning of the list instead of in the very end. So we can do that by using a method called OnShift. So if we do OnShift does the same thing as push or as this symbol. However, instead of adding to the end of the list, it's going to add to the beginning. And I think that's very clear here that instead beef appearing here after pear is now appearing before banana. So you can insert elements here, and naturally, if you call this again here, it's gonna insert. I don't know. Let's say you want to buy chips, and it's gonna be. So you had this list, and you inserted beef, and then you inserted chips. So that's why chips, the last one, is gonna be the first one. So, what else can we do with lists? We can say that we have groceries, and then we have more groceries, and more groceries is going to be beef, and let's say we want to buy water, and then we also want to buy wine. And well, we now have two lists. We have groceries and we have more groceries. But we can say that we want groceries to be equal to groceries. So this is a valid statement, but it doesn't really change anything, right? And we can do plus more groceries. Groceries, sorry about that. So groceries is now going to be itself plus more groceries. So you can probably guess what this is going to do. It's going to add up the two lists. So it's not going to care about what the elements are. I mean, you could have cheese here. You could also have cheese here. It would be duplicate. Let's put cheese here as well. So you see now you have cheese 2 times here. So you see that the order is maintained. So the order is important. You have the first list here. You have the second list here. But the reality is now that after line 6 has been executed, groceries has been permanently changed, and it now contains all of this. It's also important to notice that since we did this change, and now if we go to more groceries and we add something else like wine, because now we were missing wine, you're gonna see that it doesn't change. So we added wine to this thing here, and it definitely went down to the end of this list. However, it didn't go to the end of this because we are changing this only after this sum operation has been done. And the same thing could apply to the same thing could not be applied to groceries, because then we would be changing this one. Another way of doing this is that we don't have to change the groceries thing here. We could also do it like this. Puts groceries plus more groceries would be the same thing. So same thing there. So this is how we can create a list, or better, an array. We can index elements, we can change elements, we can add elements to the right side, we can add elements to the left side, we can put together in sequence 2 lists, and you notice that the order is important here. So the order is important. If you do this, the order is going to be different. It's going to be first beef, water, and cheese, and then the other list. So order is important. Well, now I want to show some few more operations that you can do on lists. And let me actually remove this second one. And it's going to be about removing elements. So removing elements. And to do that, we can say like groceries dot delete and then t. And if we print this now, we see we're going to have the same list, but we will be missing t. And yet another thing that I want to do is so this is how you delete elements essentially in the list. And let's say we can do it also in a different way. We can say like groceries dot pop. So pop is going to remove the last element of the list. So there's also another way to remove elements, which is shift. Oops. And it's going to remove the first element, so we don't have bananas anymore. Now you can see that there's kind of a relation here. So there's push, and then there's unshift. These two can add elements to the list. And then there is pop, and there is shift. So these are common names, also in other programming languages, in that you say when you push an element into a list or an array, you're gonna add it to the end of it. You always push elements to this list. You're gonna add it to the end. You can think of this maybe like a stack. So you have a stack. So on the very bottom of the stack you have bananas. Then on top of bananas you have tea. On top of that you have 3000, whatever that means. And on top of it all, so the top of the stack is you're gonna have cheese. And I don't know, you could maybe you wanna do a hamburger. Is this how you write it? Hamburger. And you can have so you would have a bun, and then you would have something there. You would have a tomato, maybe more tomatoes. You'd have I don't know what you want to have in your hamburger. You'd have ham, or yeah, and then you would have bun again. Maybe that's your hamburger. So you see that from bottom to top, you're gonna have the bun, then mayo, then tomatoes, then ham, and then another bun. And if we would, so let me get off with this groceries list and work with the hamburger. So if you do like push, you're gonna add to the top of the hamburger, and if you do pop, you're gonna pop something off the top of the list, or hamburger, you're gonna pop something out from the top. So push and pop are always gonna work with the end of the list. And if you think about conceptually, it's gonna be like a stack. So this hamburger is just a stack where things are stacked over one another. So push and pop, right? and then if you think about shift and unshift, these two elements are gonna do the same things. They're gonna allow you to insert elements and to remove elements. And they're gonna be like, I don't know, they're related to each other. So push and pop are one thing, and shift and unshift are other. And these work with end of the list or right side of the array, and these ones work with the beginning of the list or the left side. So shift is going to remove this bun, and after we remove this bun, we call shift again. We are going to remove mayo, and pop is going to remove this bun here, and unshift is going to add something underneath the stack or in the beginning of the array or on the left side of the array. So I think you got the idea. These are important concepts, both in Ruby and in other programming languages. You should memorize these namings and the concepts that they represent. So you saw how to add things to the list and to remove it. And what else I want to also show is, well, let's go back to the groceries. So groceries, mom. Let's say mom did a grocery list which is gonna have cheese, wine, and it's gonna have beef and tomatoes. And then there's the groceries that I don't know, sis. It's gonna be sister. So his sister did a also groceries list with wine and cabbages and what else do we? And chips. She likes chips. So we see that well, we have in common here among these two lists. We have wine. So both lists have wines. And if we already know how to sum. Oops, this is going to be mom, and then the groceries from sister. So this is going to be summing up these two lists. However, we can also do it like this, so minus. So this is going to take whatever is in the mom's list, whatever is in this list, and it's going to remove from it the things that are on the sister list. So if we print this, we see that cheese, which I now see I wrote wrongly, so let me correct that. So we're gonna have cheese in mom's list and beef and tomatoes, but we're missing wine. That's because we said, well, we want everything that is in here, but we don't want anything that is in here. So since this list didn't have cabbages was not removed because it's already not here. Same applies for chips. But wine was removed because we're saying that we want the list there minus the elements here, and wine was here, therefore it removed it from here. We can also say something like, and just remember one thing, this minus is not actually removing anything from this variable. It's not removing from this variable. It is saying that it is this one minus this one. So this is going to produce a new array here. This is going to produce a new array. This is not changing this one. It is kind of, I don't know, changing a intermediate array in there, but it's not affecting what is in here. Well, let me actually go and show that in a better way. Let me add a divider here, and let's put the groceries mom. So this list was unaffected. You see, we have here the result of this, in that it's cheese, beef, and tomatoes, and then we have this divider to display things better, and then we have the mom groceries, and it is untouched, so we have wine still here. That's because we are not changing it. If we wanted to change it, we would have to assign the value to it. We would have to do something like this and then remove this. So this would now change this. So it's important to recognize that it's like summing numbers. So when you do like 4 or 10 minus 5, you're not changing 10 itself. 10 is not being changed here. You're just doing an operation between two numbers, and you only are interested in the resulting value of it. So that explained. Let's move ahead, and I want to show you also another operator, which is the AND. So this is an AND. So in Ruby we have AND like this, and we call this a logical AND. I'm saying AND. I'm not saying AND. So AND. This is AND. And this is also AND. But these are two different kinds of AND. Now, groceries and with only one symbol is gonna take, so this is the logical AND, and what it's doing is saying, well, give me the elements that are both here and also here. That's why it's called AND, which is here and here. And if we would do it like this would be a different thing. So this is the I don't actually know exactly the name of this. It could be called a bitwise AND, but this is a logical AND, and this is not. So this one would give us a result of true and false, which does make sense here. You can use this in if conditions and stuff, but for when using arrays, you want to use only like this. So other operator is, we want to say OR. So this is OR. So in Ruby you also have OR like this, and you also have OR like this. And these ones, they work together, and also these ones, they work together. So this you would use this in a condition, inside an if or something like that. And this you can use with arrays. This also you can use with arrays or lists. So what this does is it says, well, give me the elements that are either here or here. So either here or here. And what this is going to give us is, well, cheese, and then wine, and then beef, and then tomatoes, and then is not going to duplicate wine here, and then cabbages, and then chips. So that's your order there. So you see it's very similar actually to summing up to arrays. It's very similar, but you see that when you're summing up, you'll get wine twice, and here you get only once. So that's the main difference from this OR thing to the plus sign. Because this is saying, well, take everything that is here, and after the end of this, put also whatever is in here without considering the elements. So you don't care about the elements, you just put these two arrays together. And if you're doing this, you're saying something quite different. You're saying, well, give me everything that is in either in here or in here. It's going to go through all elements that are in here and also put everything that is in here, but it's not going to duplicate things. Yeah, so that are the basic operations of arrays. And I encourage you again to go to Ruby's documentation, as I showed you previously. You go there and you read about these other methods that can be there in arrays. In a different lesson in the future, I'm going to go a little bit more in depth with arrays, and we're going to learn more about them. For this lesson, that's it. So see you soon. Goodbye.